I just thank you for recording. I'm sure I would remember that, honestly. So welcome to the community leaders, community drivers tug. It's our birthday. It's exactly 1 year ago since we started this. It's been an entirely virtual group. So Charlotte, Amy, and I, we're all based in the UK, but we welcome people from all around Europe and further afield. I can see friends from the US here as well. So thank you. Thank you for all of those of you who have been with us since day one, and for all those who haven't and have joined us during the year. Then it's been great to have you on this journey as well. So this is our 5th tug up to now. Remember that might be some useful information for you later. We've had a number of guests throughout the year, and we're really excited to have my friend and Zen master and all-round community driver expert, Eva Murray. She'll be talking to us very shortly. Before that, we will just go on to Menti. We'll ask you a couple of questions just to sort of find out who we've got here. For those of you who are not yet on it, go to menti.com and use that code that you can see there, 25761881. So we'll start with a couple of just sort of questions to chat, and then later on, after Eva has spoken to us, we'll have a quiz. And we've actually got some pretty cool prizes in the quiz, which I find is quite annoying because usually I'm quite competitive. I love entering quizzes. I sometimes win these things. There's Tableau swag up for grabs. There's a Tableau e-learning license up for grabs. The only reason I say it's quite annoying is because I'm not allowed to enter it. So at least 3 of you are going to walk off with some pretty cool stuff today as well. But don't expect that I've made it easy for you. But it would be fun anyhow. So we're going to start now. So for those of you who are in Menti, let me just start this off. Okay, so we'll just start. If you want to show us an emoji of your mood right now. Not sure what my emoji would be if I was, well, birthday emoji is quite right. It's very hot and sunny here in the UK, so maybe I'll be putting a sunny or even that sweltering emoji. I'm not quite sure, but it's looking good. Looks like we've got people in a pretty good place right now. Oh, good. Oh, you can have words as well. Sunny, happy, excellent. Right, thank you very much. I'll give you just nearly 10 more seconds. I'm watching the clock. All right, okay, next question. So have you been here before? So have you been here before? Or is this your first visit? Or have we got some super fans here? I know we have some super fans. I've seen Jim here many times. All right, oh, well, that's really interesting. I'm glad that over half of you, it seems to be a brand new here today. So hopefully we can introduce you on what we have to say today. All right, a few more seconds, then I should move on. Okay, and where are you logging in from today? London, hello London. Big London makes me think we've got about 3 people who said London there. Hello Maryland, hello Tavares. Either somebody lives in Tavares or that's the 70s soul band, Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel. Hello Derby, I'm about 10 miles down the road from you in Derby, or up the road in Alfreton. So we've got a global mix and we've got someone 10 miles away from me. All right, next question. Are you going to win our birthday quiz? So I guess we have a measure of our competitive nature. I think you're all going to be pretty good. I think this just means that we've got some people who are quite modest and some people who just don't care. But that's good. I like that. That's over 50% in it to win, just about. All right. So talk time. So thank you, Charlotte. You mentioned you put in a little break there, so I'd know exactly when it was talk time. I have a feeling that means it's right now. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Eva. Eva Murray, as I mentioned, she's going to talk to us all about building inspired analytics communities. And if you want to know why we've got Eva, Eva has literally she's written the book. She's written the book about this. You can buy this in all good bookshops, or you can get it off Amazon anyway. But Eva has put a lot of work into building inspired analytics communities, not least Makeover Monday, which she has been running until very recently for over 4.5 years. And you know, what she doesn't know isn't worth knowing, really. So we're going to, I'm going to hand you over to Eva, and also going to hand you over to my co-leader Charlotte, who's going to lead a chat. We've got lots of questions for her. If you do think of any others, please put them in the chat. Amy and I will be having a look at that. Well, Amy will, and we'll be just making sure that they get asked as well. Got plenty of time to do. If you think of anything, put it in there. But for now, I will stop sharing my screen and we'll hand you over to Charlotte and Eva.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Neil, for that Menti mastership. And thanks again, Eva. I feel like you're going to be thanked 100 times for joining us, but we really are totally so grateful for you coming along today to share your wisdom with our community. I think it's also really important that we are super interested in everyone who's joined us today, your questions and what you want to know from either as well, because this session is for you as much as for myself. I have a list literally as long as my arm of questions I would love to ask Eva personally. But if you do have any questions that you want to ask yourself, please pop them in the chat so we can direct them to Eva as well. But I guess to get us started, I mean, Neil has said what an amazing kind of CV you have in this space. I guess it was if you wanted to give us a real overview on what it is you've done and what's brought you into this kind of role from where, you know, you first started with data to today. And then, as I said, if anyone has any questions as we're going, please pop them into the chat. So I guess over to you, Eva, for your brief history in 2 minutes or however long it's going to take.
Okay, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. It's nice to see some familiar names and faces on the screen from kind of all across the US, but also Europe. So great to have a bit of a crowd here. Yeah, so my name is Eva Murray, for those who don't know me, and my journey with Tableau started just a little less than 8 years ago. I had just recently joined Commonwealth Bank in Australia, and I was part of the MIS team, as it was called at the time, within a finance team, within a segment of the bank. And one of my first tasks was to evaluate BI tools, and I'm like, oh, well, the only one I really know is Click. So I'm going to recommend Click. How very unprofessional of me to, you know, just kind of go with what I know. So I reached out to IT and I said, you know, like, how do I go about this process? They said, well, you basically just have 2 options, Oracle BI or Tableau, because that's what we have in the business. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's it then. So Oracle BI wasn't really a go because we were business people, we didn't code. So I'm like, okay, let me have a look at this Tableau thing. And so I downloaded trial. This is, I believe, version 6.8. I open it and I'm like, there's a gray canvas. Gray to me means I can't do anything. Where's the white canvas? Took me a little while to figure out I have to just click on something and something will happen. And once I started, I was sold. And I'm like, this is really fun. This is really cool. And I was fortunate that working for a big customer in Australia at the time, where there were only 5 Tableau people in the country, or like Tableau employees in the country, just made me special. It made them want to help me with things because they were hoping I would spend money on things. I'm like, I don't have any budget, like I'm not the right person. But regardless, I had direct connection to Meg Bryler, their SE over there, and then Alan Aldridge, who's now a colleague of mine at Snowflake, who led the SE team over there. And you know, sales. And then I ended up going to a user group. I hope I can contain this within 2 minutes. And that's where I met David Murphy, who I'm sure many of you know. He's a Zen master and he's with Google, he's based in Singapore. And I also met Fiona Gordon. And I'm like, oh, people do this in their spare time. And then they meet and have beer and pizza. David turned out to literally be my next door neighbor. So that's where it all started. And I found this community. And that's when I realized, like, this is actually something I should do more of. And, you know, I used it for work. I didn't really do much outside of work with Tableau until I went to TC15 in Vegas. And that just blew my mind. I want to say the rest is history, but there's a lot that happened along the way. And probably the biggest milestone for my career within Tableau Data Viz community was that Andy asked me to help him co-host Makeover Monday. That was at the end of 2016, because Andy Cotgrave, who had done the project with him for a year, was like, well, I don't really want to continue. So there was space. And I said, yep. And really kind of threw myself at it, which is so tempting to do because you have all these ideas and all this enthusiasm and you're like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to help everyone. I'm going to fix everything. And 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to keep this up? But I can't stop now. So we worked together to find ways of making it sustainable so that I could come with my ideas that Andy was always a bit frightened of because they meant more work. But we were able to implement things that would help the community in a way we could manage kind of long term. And looking back, they had a big impact, but the steps themselves were small. And I think that's my biggest lesson learned out of those last 4.5 years, specifically around Makeover Monday, to only commit to something that I can see myself doing for years and years and years every week. And I think that's something I approach it the same way in my personal life as well. At the moment, I'm very much focusing on, okay, how am I going to structure my training, running, yoga? I need to work on my core strength. Doing something like 30-minute yoga session a day is just not realistic. So I committed to 5 minutes a day of core workout because 5 minutes I can fit in. And that's how we kind of accumulated all these new things for Makeover Monday, which included this review, the weekly webinar, we gave feedback to people and we did that together. And then Charlie came in to help me and then other people came in. And then I just kind of said, okay, I need a bit of a break. And that was last month. And in May, I said, I'm just going to take a break from Viz Review. And I ended up also not building any Vizes. And then I realized, yep, I think now is the time to hand it over to someone else because there's a natural, and maybe this was not kind of planned to so early on say, well, I'm now out of Makeover Monday, but I think we have to be realistic about what we can do, what we can commit to, especially in our spare time. And for me, this was a point where I'm like, I'm just not able to give what I used to give anymore because other things have entered my life that I want to devote my time to. And I don't want to do a half-assed job. So I would rather someone else take over with whatever level of excitement and enthusiasm they bring and with their ideas and take it to a different and a new level. And here we are today. So yeah, I'm ready for questions and comments. And Charlotte, I don't know how you want to run it, but I'm also happy for people to just switch on their mic and say their thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So we have had a question in from Jim. So I don't know, do you want to ask it yourself?
Sure. So yeah, I was thinking about communities, and I have I've kind of experienced a couple of times that people who are like full-time analysts, they can get very excited about joining these kind of community projects because it feels to them like that's kind of an opportunity for development. Mm-hmm. But especially the internal user groups, you might want to get a lot of business people in who are like, well, they make some reports, but they hardly have time to really dedicate to even building things in Tableau. But it still feels like they should be part of this community. But how do you actually sell the value proposition to them?
To the business people.
Well, to the people who feel like they don't have enough time to spend on community projects.
Yeah, and that's something that is very close to my heart and that I hope managers and leaders will come to understand and embrace. It needs to become part of their job, which means either, well, their job maybe need to change a little bit or just maybe some tasks move to someone else or maybe get dropped because they're not important in the first place. they need to be able to do this within their workday. And I say that as someone who, I'm pretty sure I skirted burnout multiple times, and I just kind of, turned the corner because I was doing something I really enjoyed, and it didn't really feel like such hard work. But if I'm really honest with myself, I probably got close to it. Maybe I was even burned out, but I'm okay. So, so that's a good thing. But if the expectation is that they do things on top of their job, which then creeps into personal time, whether it's evenings, mornings, lunch breaks, it's not going to be sustainable. So I think a recommendation I would give is to quantify what the commitment is. For example, we want everyone to be upskilled. We're going to offer lunch and learn sessions. That means over the course of a month, if you do it weekly, let's say, everyone has to do 2 over the course of 4 months, that's attending, and once a quarter they need to actually present something. However you want to structure that, but to have people, like, give them the chance to have skin in the game. So maybe they need to share something, and it doesn't mean it has to be something big or massive. It could literally be, hey, this is something I built, I just want to show you and get your feedback. And it could be a discussion rather than a presentation about a new topic. But it's something I took away from my time at Deloitte, which is where I started working as a consultant fresh out of uni. And we had every month, it was called Fly Home Friday, so that all the consultants were in the home office, not the home office, but the office where they were actually living. And that was all about learning and development. So somebody had to share something, and it was part of our KPIs for our annual performance plan. And to me, that made sense because we were expected to do it, but there was also room to do it. And I think that's the way I would approach it. So is it an hour a week? Is it half a day a month, whatever it might be? But it needs to be very clear that this is not extracurricular. They can do it as part of their day-to-day work. And there will be some sort of recognition for it. Maybe it's part of their performance goals, or there's little incentives like, well, depending on regulations, but little, vouchers for something or whatever it might be.
Okay.
And then
I think it does answer it to an extent. I think the main thing I took away from it was that it's important for the organization as a whole to see these kind of initiatives as, well, opportunities rather than, and I think that's the challenge too, especially people who are not used to these kind of things. If you tell them you're going to make like a fun Viz review or like a Viz competition, and they hear that you've been spending like an afternoon building something based on Netflix data, I think a lot of people in our company, as a construction company, they're going to have a hard time explaining that to their boss. But that's kind of a corporate mindset that you need to kind of maybe work on in that case.
Yeah, and I think it's about also spelling out, okay, so what are the options? People can work with work data, which they do every day anyway. We want to spark a bit of innovation, so we're going to take something fresh. It's just like any other initiative that maybe brings in an external trainer and they do something else. I mean, if you bring in someone who does Tableau training, they're going to use Superstore, which is not your work data. So I think if you can sell it as, we're going to use this to just get people out of their normal work mindset and into learning, creativity, new ideas, and also what I suggested, that's the framework. But I think what you're also asking about is the mindset of the actual people, the people in the business, of how can we make them understand that this is good for them? And I guess my suggestion was, okay, that's step one. If you can create the environment where they're like, oh, this is not extra, then I think it's easier for them to realize, oh, this could be a good thing for me, not just a chore or some extracurricular activity. And by all means, maybe use examples like Make a Monday and the many other community examples to show, hey, this is what people do, and this is how it helps them. Maybe don't focus on the bit about, oh, they can find new jobs, but rather they're building their skills, which means they're going to get faster at doing things. So quick example from my side before I finish this question. I was approached by my publisher if I wanted to build visualizations for just a completely different book that somebody has written. And I said yes. And then it was about, how do I negotiate on the price and what do I charge for this? And the charts were quite simple, And I felt bad charging a high amount. But then a friend of mine said, the only reason why you can do those simple charts so quickly is because you've invested 7 years of your life learning this. So, you know, I'm not charging for the chart. I'm charging for all the expertise that went into creating this chart in 10 minutes, which then bumps up the price. So from that perspective, it's about, hey, we're going to help people build skills that come into their day-to-day jobs. They're going to work faster, most likely. They're going to have different approaches. They're going to get better at storytelling. They're going to connect to other people in the business, which helps them then get a better picture of the whole story around the data and those kind of things. And it might just have to be spelled out very clearly and plainly to them.
Okay, thanks.
Thinking about that kind of, you know, getting that internal buy-in and stuff like that, especially from, you know, senior leaders, do you have kind of examples of where you've seen communities do something, or when you've been working in communities, which is actually a senior manager's turned around and said, you know, this is what is making our organization, you know, change. This is what's bringing us good. Or an example where someone's used Makeover Monday to really build that success story.
Yeah, I think what Makeover Monday has helped people to do in their organizations is take that same approach, but apply it to their business problems. And there are quite a few organizations now that use the idea of, it doesn't have to be weekly, but maybe once a month they come together and they just sit in the room and they're like, okay, we have this dashboard and we, based on data, user statistics, we can see not a lot of people use it, or maybe they use the overview, but they don't go into the detail. Why is that? Let's analyze how user-friendly it is. I know Emily Kuhn is on here. How accessible is it? What are some of those things? And using the whole collective intelligence in the room to figure that out. So that's kind of like those Viz review sessions, and also the regular practice. And I think that's definitely had an impact in organizations. People don't always talk about it publicly just because it becomes part of the secret sauce of what makes their analytics teams, you know, successful and doing well for their organizations. But I've definitely talked to several of them where they said, you know, we'll use the approach and we'll just use our own data or our own dashboards and make over the dashboards, maybe as part of an internal initiative to rebrand. So maybe it's just the visual aspect, or to actually improve. Maybe it's a migration from a different tool to Tableau, or from Tableau to a different tool, but using that approach to say, okay, what was it like before? What is it like now? Or what do we want it to be like? And how can we get there? And I still use that same approach so much as well, where just because it helps me think about it, what do I like about this? What don't I like about it? And how would I do it better?
Amazing. So I guess a bit of shout out. If anyone does want to ask any questions, please like pop in the chat, or shout out, put your hand up or whatever, just so we can hear it from you. But I guess the other question I had is at the very beginning of that answer, you spoke about being in a room, and obviously we now know that can be virtual or it can be a physical room. But what do you think, kind of COVID and this situation we're now, what kind of challenges have you seen that bringing to communities and organising things in a virtual world, rather than being able to be all together in a room to do these sorts of things? Yeah, I think, well, one thing I've personally experienced is that when you do get to meet in person, it feels like a really, really special thing. I had a meeting with someone yesterday in the city, and he said, you know, I put on a shirt, like an iron shirt, and I had even polished my toenails because I had sandals on. And I'm like, I never do that because I'm just at home all the time. So I think the in-person connections will be so much more valued, at least in the short term. I hope it doesn't fizzle out. I hope we remind ourselves that it's actually not a given anymore that we get to spend time together in a room. But it's also helped foster creativity, because people have to figure out a way to build their communities in a virtual environment. And I think that's not a bad thing, because so many organizations, especially in this Tableau world, they are globally distributed anyway. So even if you build something locally in your office in London, in New York, in Seattle, you have colleagues in other places that you need to include
only virtually because that's all you can do. So I think it's pushed us into a direction where it becomes quite normal and second nature that we figure this out, much like this user group. You know, it's all virtual, it's always been virtual, and everyone accepts that. What is challenging, and of course, you know, people could sit in a room and they could fall asleep or be on their phone, but there's much more of a disconnect with, you know, being virtual, because I don't know, you have the nice view, you have your dog, ours is downstairs, you might have kids running around, you might have, I don't know what else, deliveries coming. So it's easy for people to miss what's going on if they're not fully switched on. Oh, there we go, there's a siren. And I personally find that hard as well. You know, I get easily distracted by things, and we all get distracted by pings and notifications and stuff. So that's why I really loved when you guys agreed to, let's just have a conversation rather than me presenting something. I have slides I can present, but I'd rather just talk, because I think it's more engaging to hear the stories and to ask and answer questions. And it helps me also show a bit more about who I am and what I can help people with, rather than the slides, which is my assumption of what people want to hear and what would be helpful for them. But out of everyone in the room, it might only help 50% of the people. So I think if we can, as a community, think of different ways to engage the audience, have different formats, make it as interactive as possible, and maybe short sessions, maybe it's a 10-minute presentation of a new trick in Tableau or a new concept, rather than a half-hour session, people are more likely to be tuned in, I think.
Cool. So we've had another question who is from someone who I actually know, and it's really interesting because Seb is a human design researcher. So he doesn't actually do, you know, quantitative data, but a lot on qualitative stuff and looking at kind of design communities. And I was like, communities are all the same, so that's why you should definitely come. And the question that he has come up with is, you know, sometimes responsibilities and priorities change quite quickly, which limits the time that you have to properly prepare or get your community up and running. So how do you ensure or help the community run and doesn't wither when suddenly you don't have the same amount of time or the commitment? I guess COVID's a really good example. You know, you've got into a good routine of meeting to have, you know, a coffee and have a chat in your small user group, and suddenly you're virtual and you've all got your kids at home to like manage. How do you keep those things going and keep it kind of ticking along?
Yeah, and again, I want to bring in my personal experience because it's literally what just happened. What I realized was, especially since changing jobs, my new job has kept me very busy, and I love that. And I don't want to make sacrifices there to run Maker Monday, but I also don't want to sacrifice so much of my personal time. So for me, it was always a choice of, on a Wednesday, if I want to run Viz Review, my personal approach is I want to run it after work, because I just want to separate that, because it makes me feel like it's the right thing to do. But if I run it after hours, it means I either make dinner later, or I don't, you know, get to walk with Andy and the dog. And like, there's always the sacrifices. And at some point I just said, there are some sacrifices I'm willing to make, like happy to sacrifice a lunch break, but not happy to sacrifice the evening walk with the dog or making dinner and sitting down together and eating dinner. So what helps with Make Up a Monday, we just cut out a couple of things, at least temporarily, until Andy has, you know, changed how he wants to run it. But what definitely helps is as much automation as possible and having documented processes and involving other people. And from personal experience, that's hard, because delegation means you have to trust other people, but it also means you don't get all the glory. And let's be quite honest, in a workplace, some of us at least, there is some attachment to, well, we want to progress, we want to be seen to do something, we want to maybe get a promotion or at least a pat on the back. And if we have 3 other people helping us, then there's just a quarter of the pats on the back. And that can be a conscious decision to, well, no, I want to do it all myself. And that's also okay. We just have to weigh up, you know, the pros and cons and the sacrifices we are willing and not willing to make. So in terms of automation, I'm a huge fan of things like, you know, Google Docs, Google Sheets and all those things, so that I can work from any device, anywhere I am. that sounds very non-work-life balance. But what I mean is, if I have an idea for Makeover Monday on the train, I can write it down in my phone. I don't have to be on my computer. So we, right from the beginning, we handled everything in those tools. So we, with our book as well, written all in Google Docs, but also a tool called Quip, which some of you probably know through Salesforce, which just helps us. And I'm saying helped us when I was still part of Makeover Monday, to keep track of everything and to collect everything in one place. Communicating a lot, but also depending on, is it all on you or are there other people involved? So we had written down templates, because when you repeat the same process every week, which for Makeover Monday includes find the data, create a spreadsheet of some sort, upload it to data.world, put in certain sections, and then publish it. Well, I don't want to write those every time, so I want to do copy and paste. So we had all these kind of templates set up where we just have to do copy and paste, copy and paste. Same for things like Andy's Watch Me Viz and Viz Review, YouTube descriptions, like literally down to the title and all of that, the tags, all of that is copy and paste. Because if you do it every week, even if it just takes 5 minutes, but you don't want to repeat that every time, you want to, reduce the manual effort. So that would be my biggest tip, if it's possible to really automate part of it, but also to plan well ahead of time. So for Makeover Monday, when you have a weekly data set to find with a Viz, we try to have them, at least for a month in advance, or to have a backlog of ideas that maybe we didn't love, but we could use one of them if we were struggling for time. And maybe for your community, that means, well, if you meet quarterly, let's plan all the dates out for the whole year at the beginning of the year, or even the end of the year before. So they're set in stone. The people who are in charge are clear, so that if one person drops off for whatever reason, or someone's on holiday, the others already know it's coming. They know what their role is and they can get on with it. I'm personally a huge fan of planning and being organized. So for me, it's easy to say that, sorry. But yeah, that's definitely helped us to run the project and probably smooth out the bumps that maybe people didn't even notice, but that we definitely had behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on the being organized. I guess, again, when it's, a part-time, it's a side of desk, it's something you're doing, even like being organized beyond a week can sometimes feel like such a pressure. And I think that's what a lot of people in that kind of community role feel. They feel pressure to deliver, and especially when you're not necessarily getting the engagement. So I think we've spoken, as in at Lloyd's, we've spoken publicly before about our kind of ghost users who are just like sponges. They come along, they like enjoy all of our content, they're reading it, they're seeing it, but they'd never comment, they'd never give anything. And if we didn't have, usage tracking on our blogs and stuff, we would never know that they're even there or seeing those benefits. And I guess it's really working, as you were saying, looking at these people and looking at who might be available to give you that support, and working to convert them, maybe not to super hosts necessarily, but something in the middle. So get it so as if there is a question that comes up time and time again, these ghost users are always looking, they can just again copy and paste and get those answers to give them that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, but on that kind of basis, and when you've been working through all of these problems and stuff, at what point did you decide, there's so much about communities that you could kind of get a whole book's worth out of it?
Oh, I know exactly the moment. So let me backtrack a little bit, and I hope some people remember. At Tableau Conference 2018, we had Adam Grant as a keynote speaker. And what I hadn't realized, because leading up to conference always was a busy time, because in my previous job, I was responsible for our whole presence at the conference. So didn't pay much attention to social media. And what they had done was through Tableau, there was a survey about the community and who are, the people in the community that are most giving. And I didn't know about the survey. I didn't fill it in. I'm feeling really bad in hindsight, but I'm sitting in this keynote and Adam Grant, he's like, I'd known of him before. I think I had followed his blog. I don't know if I read a book of his before the conference, but I'd known of him and I was a huge fan. And suddenly there's a picture of Andy and me on the stage. I'm like, what is this about? So the community had chosen us as the most giving people in the community. And I literally sat there, I was crying. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Anyway, we got to also, as the Zen Master group, we got to have a lunch session with Adam where he spoke. And he said he would help people, and he told us how to approach him. And I love that. And he said, send me an email. Don't put all the fluffy stuff in there. Just write what you want. And then afterwards you can do all the pleasantries. I'm like, that's such a great idea. So I said, hi, Adam, I would like your help to get to a TED Talk. Like, I want to hold a TED Talk. That was my goal. And then afterwards I said, oh, you're so inspiring, blah, 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 blah. And he emailed me back like the same day. I'm like, holy shit. Anyway, so he said he would do what he could. And then a couple of months later, he invited us to speak at the Wharton People Analytics Conference. So he works at Wharton Business School as an organizational psychologist. We couldn't both go because, it's like a personal commitment, cost money to fly and all of that. And Andy just didn't have the capacity. So he said I should go and present. And it was a 15-minute talk. So I flew to Philadelphia for this 15-minute presentation about essentially this community of Makeover Monday. And when I was on stage and I was doing this talk, and there were 600 people in the room, and they were all like really impressive people to me. There was like a Nobel Prize winner, and there was the CEO of Deloitte. And I stood there, I'm like, I should write a book about this. So that was the moment when I thought I should. And then it took this was in May 2019. It took all the way until I think November that year until I actually put my proposal together. And then I started writing last year in January, just as the pandemic started to kind of unfold. And yeah, that was the journey of that book. And it was just really memorable because I think because I stood in front of an audience that actually wanted to hear about this community, not so much about data visualization, but about this community and what it could do. And yeah, anyway, that's the story there.
Yeah, so inspiring and so exciting as well, because I think that's exactly where I was getting to with the point about Seb. Communities, yes, here we are a data community, but they span much wider than just that. You have sports communities, and you have communities of practice, and lots of different things. And it is, I think your book, from when I read it, the thing that really stuck to me was it's not, yes, there is data, but it's not specific to data communities. Like, if you want to run anything and get a community movement going, then that is exactly the right thing. Laura from Tableau, who I don't think is here anymore, used to work for Airbnb as their community leader. And I'd never even thought about the fact that Airbnb has a community of hosts until she said that was her whole job. And I was like, that is so cool. Because it is just about bringing everyone together. And I guess on that kind of idea and the bringing of everyone together, how much do you feel like the kind of support network that is around a community and around people is important to their success or successes?
I think it's important, and I hope I can be a bit honest and frank here. So Tableau has a fanatic community, let's call it. It's like, I don't want to misuse the word cult, but we are quite obsessed as a community with the tool, the company, and everything it stands for. And I think they've done a phenomenal job in building that, because it's not just about here's a forum and here's some Twitter, a Twitter feed. It's about, like, everyone needs to be bought into this idea that community matters, and you need to have people that drive it and that, fire it up. I think what we have to be careful of, and everyone who participates is, responsible for helping to do that, is it doesn't become like over the top ambitious and competitive. And I say that because when I wrote on Tuesday my post about, okay, this is why I'm stepping down from Makeover Monday, I deliberately spelled out my reasons in a very personal way. And I had people message me, directly, but also in the comments saying, it's really nice that you say that that you're putting, your personal life first and how important it is and all that. It wasn't for me about praise or likes. My intention was to give those people who are a bit unsure, who feel the pressure to constantly be seen doing things to rise through the ranks of whatever they want to rise through, but who also feel this doubt of, am I just wasting my time? Am I exhausting myself? And for what reason? I wanted to give them almost like permission to say, actually, it's not the most important thing in my life. I have other things, and it's okay if they come first. I'm also wearing the Zen Master t-shirt. I'm very proud of that title, and I think it's a great group of really cool people. And it's easy for me to say, don't aspire to it, but I find it dangerous if we get too hung up on, I want to get to that level, because then everything we do becomes about achieving that one goal that we can't even fully influence. When I became a Zen master, it was definitely because of Makeover Monday, and I had put in a lot of work. I would have continued to do that even if I hadn't gotten the title. Maybe it would have felt like, oh, I didn't get recognized for it, but I shouldn't do something just to get a title of some sort. And again, easy for me to say because I have the title. So, you know, it's nice to have that. But I think unless you're in control of, you know, let's say you have very specific targets, and if you hit those targets, you get a pay rise, then you're kind of in control if you can hit those targets with minimal outside influence. If I can say, okay, if I run, you know, like 5 miles every day, I get £1 for every mile, I can hit this target. But if so many other factors play into it, you're kind of at the mercy of that environment. And if you just happen to not get chosen for something, and that uproots your whole world and makes everything suck, then that's really not healthy. So I think, long story short, we have to be like, the environment makes it all possible and makes it happen, but we have to be careful that the environment doesn't create this like pressure cooker where people feel that this is all they should focus on, this is all they should care about, especially because social media makes it so easy for people to just show the cool stuff and not all the other stuff. And I know, for example, there was a discussion a couple of years ago, how much work do people put into becoming a Zen master? What does it mean for them? You know, and some people, for them, what they do as Zens is actually part of their job. Maybe it's even their business, it's their livelihood. So of course they dedicate hours to it every single day. But others don't have that because maybe their job doesn't even involve Tableau. So if they want to become the same level of technical experts or be super involved in the community, they have to do all of that on top of their job. And that takes time away from their family. So they're like, well, do I want to spend time with, you know, my children or my partner, my friends, my parents, or do I want to build visualizations? And yes, we have to probably spend some time in our personal time investing in our career, at least at some stage, but it shouldn't be the constant expectation. And I've just come to learn over the years, it's let's not make it the only way people can operate. Let's accept that there are all sorts of different paths, and everything should be in a way celebrated. Like, it should be totally fine if someone's like, 5 o'clock, I'm closing my laptop, I'm not building a viz tonight. And if someone else wants to do it, all the power to them. But let's not let it become unhealthy.
I think that's so important. And it's, for me, I think Tableau Blueprint is a good idea. I think it's a good principle, but I sometimes feel like it feels like it's me doing something for Tableau rather than actually getting that benefit and my community seeing the benefit from it, because it's kind of, you know, like a one size fits all, and Lloyd's is such a big organization. It doesn't really fit for us. It would make more sense for individual teams to be doing it probably than trying to do it as an overall. And I think it is that kind of like, oh, do I have to do this? Is it the right thing to do? And taking that step back and saying, you know what, this does not work for us. And just because that's part of your goals and your aims, that's not something that we're going to do, but actually I can get the principles from it and I can get the ideas and I can use those. And kind of going along that theme, that sort of community disasters, like, have you ever had, you know, something where you've had a really great, or you believe was a really great idea, but actually when it's come to fruition, you've not had that buy-in, and how do you kind of get on or get up from that and push people forward to keep trying when it's not quite getting the buy-in you'd expect?
Oh, good question. I think, well, I guess whenever we've done an event, there's always a risk that people don't show up or they don't participate, especially the Makeover Monday live events. So, you know, whenever they were Tableau user groups, it's probably a fairly safe environment because people want to come. They come anyway. But if you've expected people to show up, 50 people with their laptops ready to do something, and then it's 10 people, but only 2 people brought a laptop, it's really awkward. And then it's really about thinking on your feet and what else could we do with these people? Admittedly, having Andy in the room means, you know, he can literally just do a demo of anything, or he's just like, well, let's just build this as a group. I've definitely become more comfortable over the years doing those kind of things, but because he teaches every single day, he has so many more examples in his head, and what about this approach? And he can just turn it into a teaching session that everyone's like, oh my God, I got to learn from Andy for an hour or for 2 hours. I don't know if with that same audience, I would have the same type of thing to offer them where they would come away with having learned so much. I'm more the person who wants to talk about these kind of topics, right? Like I want to more, hey, let's all like have a discussion. I'm not the Tableau technical teacher because it's just not my strength, and I can teach you some stuff, but I'd rather talk about things like, these challenges, building communities, maybe even critiquing vizzes, but not necessarily building them from scratch with super complex table calcs and calculated fields. So in that, but coming back to something we've talked about maybe half an hour ago by now, is also about preparation. So maybe if you've planned a certain session, having a backup plan to say, what else could we do? Or if you've planned a certain initiative and it's just not coming off the ground, what does that mean? You've probably communicated to your manager, well, this is what I'm going to do. So every week I'm going to spend a couple of hours on this. And after a month, we have a little showcase virtually or in person. But if no one's participating and you don't have much to show, how can you still save that? I'm a huge fan of just being honest and saying, okay, well, this is the stuff we can show, but also what are the lessons learned? And making that not a personal attack or, a big like airing the dirty laundry, but okay, we've learned that in this organization, one thing we struggle with is actually making the time for this because we have such a jam-packed schedule. Maybe I, as the organizer, chose the wrong time. End of the month, end of the quarter. Everyone is, just slammed with crunching the numbers. They don't have time for extra stuff. So I think leaders are getting a bit more clued up. It's not just about, okay, this is what promised, this is what we have to deliver, but what have we learned? What will we do differently? And how does what we've learned benefit everyone? I'm a big fan of lots of things, obviously, but I'm a big fan of creating maybe a nice one-pager or a short slide deck where you spell that out and say, this is what we did, this is what we learned, and here is how you, department XYZ, can use that for your benefit in the future. But also, we want to try a different approach next time, and we're looking for volunteers and maybe even ideas of, did we pick the wrong topic? What would be a better topic? So one of the lessons learned might be, well, we didn't pick the biggest pain point, because usually if you start from something that bothers a lot of people, people are engaged and want to do something about it. But maybe you started with a nice to have and it just didn't feel like a big priority.
That seriously rings true, and that kind of almost using the agile development methodology into just everyday life. Like I use Kanban boards for everything, and it is right, because even though something doesn't necessarily go right, doesn't mean you can't take benefits from the things that have gone wrong. We've had another question in the chat on any guidance or what you should focus on and the pitfalls mainly to avoid during the launch phases of your data community. So when you're just about to get started, you've got a big plan. What are the kind of must-dos and must-avoids, would you say?
Yeah, what I would definitely do is identify what's your purpose, what's your mission. For Makeover Monday, our mission was to improve the way we visualize and analyze data, one chart at a time. And that's something we could always tie everything back to. The main objective is we want to help people get better at visualizing the data. And once they're a bit more, bought into the whole idea, also the analysis part of it, not just the building the viz. Finding that purpose, it could be something like, well, we want to make sure that everyone who uses Tableau can pass the associate certificate or something like that, like some sort of measurable way of assessing their skill. Or maybe it's about, improving, maybe it's a temporary initiative and it's about, well, we've got to rebrand all of our dashboards. So, what is then the purpose? The purpose is to take all the old stuff and turn it into new products that, align with the new branding that reflect what our company is focused on. So identifying that first and coming up with a bit of a roadmap of what does it involve So what do we already have? For example, we have all the dashboards that need to be changed. What do we not have? Maybe we don't have the style guide yet. So what are some of the steps that we need to go through to complete this whole challenge? So we're going to get the style guide with all the fonts, the colors, and all those things. And then what's your timeline? It might be that, okay, realistically, we can get 3 people involved in this whole thing because we're not the biggest company. It's going to take us, I don't know, a week of elapsed time per person per dashboard or something like that. So spelling that out a little bit, and it doesn't have to be super precise. It has to be a rough guide so that you can then get, your approvals, but also getting other people involved, because delegation is key, as I've experienced many times, and having other people involved is important. And then, yeah, an agile approach, definitely, checking along the way, what's working, what isn't working. Maybe instead of everyone working on their own on something, you actually get together and work on a dashboard. I mean, I'm just making this up as I go, but maybe one person just focuses on the text, one person just on color, and one person on all the borders, or something like that. And if that doesn't work, then there's a different approach. And another important thing, and that also leads us to the newsletter question that I briefly saw, is to then showcase the results. I'm a German, and I'm very German at heart, where it's like, well, we don't really shout about our achievements. They should speak for themselves, right? We build nice cars. Everyone knows that. I don't have to tell you. But I've also learned from living down under, living in the UK, and being very much exposed to America, you have to talk about your stuff, because otherwise no one will know. And showcasing what comes out of the community, on the one hand, lets you heap some praise on the people who did it and give them the recognition. Also get some recognition for yourself as the leader who makes this all happen, but share with the rest of the department or the whole organization what's possible, and getting them interested in your work, which then hopefully leads to the community growing and you doing things for them as well, and gives you, again, more exposure. So showcasing that, I think, is also a really important step as you near the end. I'd say let's use Makeover Monday as an example because it's so convenient. If you want to do something like regular training internally and you have a specific cadence, I also recommend running a pilot phase where you test out whether it works. A weekly commitment is a big commitment, but it also is something that's very easy, because I think why Makeover Monday works is it's not makeover every 3rd Monday of the month, but it's Makeover Monday. It's every week. If you miss a week, it doesn't matter because the next one comes around so quickly. It's very easy for people to join. And if they miss something, again, they can just join a week later. So depending on your capacity, a weekly initiative or weekly activity might be right. If you do something every week, test it for a month. See how it goes, adjust. If you do something every month, test it for a quarter. So just give yourself a few instances of something happening, whether it's lunch and learn session, everyone does a viz by themselves, presentations, whatever it might be, so that you have some data points to work with.
Amazing. And then a question that I had for myself, and you briefly touched on it, is communities on a budget. And I think, when people imagine, especially internal communities, everyone just immediately goes to training and learning, and, certifications for Tableau is a really good example. What do you think that is the most important part of, being a community, but also ideas for doing stuff? And I guess this really links into the point about being frustrated by the tool, because frustration comes from, a lack of understanding and then a lack of proper and formalized training. How do you see kind of those sorts of things working and bringing them together from a community perspective?
Yeah, I think it depends a bit on the company culture. So coming back to my German roots, Germans are very, well, not in general, but in this industry, it's very technical. What they would expect from a presentation is, tell me all the the bits and the bolts and the facts and all the details. If your company is like that, maybe there is a really big focus on, well, we want people to be certified, because then we know they have this piece of paper that tells us they can do a certain thing. I personally don't think the certifications are the be all and end all. The last time I did mine was in 2015 because I had to do it to become a Tableau trainer when I was still living in Australia. There are other ways to assess it, but of course it is a system that's already there. So I would personally, if I was running a company, I wouldn't go through the trouble of creating my own certification pathway because it's a lot of effort for maybe not much extra benefit. But if technical training is really important, I've seen companies who are like, well, we want our people to be Zen masters, like you haven't understood. But if you want people to have a basic skill of Tableau and increase those skills, let them run through those certification programs. And that can be a milestone. That can be something that's part of their performance review, that can be, assessed. And I know that Andy, with the data school, all of the data schoolers in their first probably months of training, they go through the Tableau and Alteryx certification. So for them, it's also important, especially as consultants, to have something to show that's objective, a way of measuring what they can do. You need to remind me of the other part of the question because I talked through it and forgot it.
It was the bit about being on a budget. So, is that learning thing really key if you've only got, a small amount of money you can spend over the year, especially if you have lots of people you need to spend it on?
Yeah, I'd probably, if money is the challenge, then rather than spending it on the certifications up front or in that first year, I'd train each other. I mean, you have to be careful not to train kind of the wrong things or kind of bad habits, but there are opportunities like, okay, people have to, for example, attend user groups. They can learn there for free. I know there are plenty of people who are happy to do a talk, could be technical, could be conceptual. Ideally, people are paid for talking outside of user groups. I think if a company wants to have an expert speak, they should pay them for it. But that can be negotiated. That's not really any of my business. But you can tap into the Zen Masters, the ambassadors, and many other people in the community who are more than willing to share some very specific technical skills and expertise. And that's the way to make that available to a lot of people at once. And then you could do that internal training. So the people who are more experienced who maybe have very advanced skills around table calcs and LODs, that's what they do a session on. Not everyone has to know everything because a lot of stuff is documented as well, but people could share their things in things like lunch and learn sessions and do exercises together. And I've learned myself that teaching is the best way to learn something because all the stuff in your head, you suddenly have to verbalize and make it very clear for people so that they can all follow along. And maybe after that first year of building skills organically from within, there is a result that's enough of a justification to then say, okay, we're now going to get people certified. And, maybe people have 2 attempts, after that they have to pay it out of their own pocket or something like, I think that stuff can be done within reason, but, I think if budget is a constraint, then finding ways to be doing it yourself to prove a point and then get the budget in the next step could back
it up. Amazing. So we are slightly over time, but there's one last kind of quick fire question I thought we'd get to, and then maybe during the quiz, if you've got a bit of time, you could answer some of them on the chat. But do you see, how do you see data communities evolving in the future, and are there any trends that you think people should start preparing for? Virtual, obviously being the most obvious one.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the format, definitely virtual is important to continue, and it might be, kind of smaller sessions where people meet. I would love to do things. So next week we have our Snowflake Summit, and I'm hoping to invite a few people over, like a watch party. I'll make some food and we'll just sit here and watch like database talks and stuff. So I think there can be nice ways to do things locally in small groups that form part of a bigger collective. What I would love to see, and again, I think we as a Tableau community can play a huge role in that, is to go beyond the surface. And Tableau makes it very easy to do things because the tool gets more and more intuitive and easier to use. You just double click, you build a chart, you can publish that and say, this is what product we should buy or sell, this is how we should market. But how do we know it's right? And I think the next phase is to really build deep analytical skills, which includes questioning kind of interrogating the data and really questioning ourselves as the person working with data, but also questioning assumptions in other people around us. Just because someone tells us, well, this is how it is, doesn't necessarily make it true. So I would love to see people go from data visualization really into analysis. The visualization is still important because that's how we can tell the story. But if the analysis is shaky, that's really scary. And I'm not talking about things like certifications, but when we think about driving a car, with self-driving cars or, automatic cars, you could almost put anyone in there and just be like, let's go. But we make sure when people are on the road, because, well, of course they could, kill someone, but they have to do a driving test, like the theory, the rules and all of that, but also a practical driving test to make sure they are fit to do this. And I think the same needs to happen in our industry, because there are organizations out there who, employ people with what they think are the skills, who help build analysis, reports, visualizations to support decision-making, but they've never really done all the training required. They don't have fundamental statistical concepts that they understand. And I think that's where we can do a lot more to level up the skills.
I think that's a really, really valuable point and a really good one to finish on as well, because data literacy is most 100% the future, along with just the data skills that we will see coming through the children who are learning Power BI in school rather than Excel and PowerPoint like we did. So hopefully it will eventually filter through and we'll start to see it kind of coming up the ranks, but it's getting to those decision makers as well. That's so important. But I want to say a massive, massive thank you for joining us and going through all of that. As I said, if you want to carry on the chat, if anyone has anything they want to say, I'm like offering Eva up saying she'll respond, but I'm sure she will. She seems like a nice person. So we'll get there. And I guess we'll hand over to Neil for the birthday celebrations, i.e. quiz. You are on mute, Neil.
Okay, well, I was only asking the usual question, which is, can you see my screen? And it turns out what I should have been asking is, can you hear me?
I can see your screen as well.
We should be back. We're on the holding screen at Menti. For anyone who wasn't here earlier who wants to join in, please go to menti.com and use that code there, 25761881. We had a few questions earlier just to warm up, just to sort of icebreaker, but very soon we're going to go to our quiz. And we've got 3 prizes, I think. We have a year's subscription to the Tableau e-learning as a prize, and we have 2 $50 prizes for the Tableau online shop. So we've got some pretty good prizes to give out. Okay, so it's not talk time anymore, it is quiz time. So if you're ready, we shall move on to question 1. Right, so question 1, an easy one to check you're paying attention, to get used to the format. Which of these is not a co-leader of the CDTUG? Nope. And thank you, that has not worked. Right.
If you go to the next slide, I think you can enter your team name. So enter your name to join the quiz. So if I click join the quiz.
Do we have this set up as a quiz?
Yeah, it is. So if you go back
Right, let me try again.
to the question.
You should be seeing some answers on your phone.
No, it's not coming out. Let me have a look in the background of Menti.
All right then. Okay, well, it's obviously to also get us used to again. I think we've possibly in tagging two quizzes together, we may have confused ourselves. How does it look, Charlotte?
It was set as a presentation for some reason on that slide, but that is now changed. So if you go off it and back on, it should be good.
All right, so we've had plenty of time to think about this answer. Let's see if this will now work. I wonder if I
So if you go back to the question.
Let's go back one. Do you think this will work? You're not used to this question by now. You never will be. Let's try. Let's just try and refresh that in case that's what needs to happen. Aha! Question 1 of 10. Right. So this is what you should have seen all along. You should have seen. Here's your question, and you've seen this lots of times now. Answer fast to get the points. And these are your questions. Which of these is not a co-leader of CDTUG? Is it Amy Ryder, Charlotte Nichols, Neil Richards, or Boris Johnson? 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Hooray. Okay. Well, thank you for your patience there. And sorry, Amy, someone's got you confused with Boris Johnson. I don't know how you should feel about that, but most of you are off to a great start there. Okay, and what's the leaderboard? So not only who was right, who got it quickest. Quickest was Sebastian Hay. All right, so okay, just 9 more questions to hold on, and we've got the rest of you coming for you. All right. Okay. I'm gonna roll now. Question 2 of 10. Oh. Answer fast to get more points. Come on, behave for me this time. Right, today is our first birthday, including today. How many meetups have there been? Have there been 3, 4, 5, or 6? I gave a clue for this an hour ago now. I didn't give a clue, I gave the answer. Who was paying attention? Time's up. Oh, pretty close. The answer is 5. We've had them every quarter, but because we started 4 quarters ago, this is the 5th one. So well done, whoever got that right. And here we go. And who's in the lead? In the lead is Sebastian. Okay, right. 2 questions so far. See if I can actually get the 3rd one right. Question 3. Tableau has a huge number of user groups, either in person or virtual. According to communitytableau.com, how many are there in total? Are there 251, 451, 651, or 852? So we know there's loads, but how many are there, or how many were there when I set this 2 days ago? Yeah, we've got a good spread there. But the correct answer was 451. So let's see how that's changed the scores on the doors. Sebastian has dropped down the leaderboard there. Well done, Jack. So we have a new leader, Jack Robertson. Okay, there are 10 questions in all, by the way. So let's see if you can hold on to that for the next 7 questions. So Eva Murray joins us today, and Eva ran Makeover Monday, but for how long did she run the project? 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, or 4.5 years? I think if you listen closely, then you probably got the answer earlier today. Oh, that is a spread, but the answer is 4.5 years. That's pretty amazing. 4.5 years it was. And let's see. Jim and Brittany got that one right. So they're going to shuffle up the leaderboard. Does it mean they overtake Jack? It does. Yeah, we've got a 3-horse race. Question 5. Answer fast to get more points. So what is the name of Eva's book on building? Embittered by data, emboldened by data, or embarrassed by data? And how good is your reading? It was empowered by data. I'm sorry somebody felt it was embarrassed by data. I think we all felt that at some point. So well done, everybody. All right, we have Jim marginally in the lead now. Question 6. A random question now about our co-leaders. This should sort the men out from the boys. Which of the leaders' full names scores highest in Scrabble? Amy Ryder, Charlotte Nichols, Neil Richards. Or because I needed a 4th category, but it's not that, is it a dead heat? So which of the 3 has got the biggest scoring name in Scrabble? It's Charlotte. Well worked out, everyone. Yes, that pesky C and the K, and just a longer name than the rest of us. So, what difference has that made to the scores? Well, Jim was a little slower there, so maybe that means, yeah, we have new leaders. Jack is back. Right, question 7. So in earlier TUG, we hosted a panel on data literacy. Which of these guests joined us? Was it Nisa Mara? Was it Sarah Nelm Rodriguez? Or was it Paul McHale? Or did we just amazingly somehow manage to get all 3 of them on a completely awesome panel? I think I might have given you a clue there. We did, in fact, have all 3 of them. For those of you new to the group, and if you want to see any of the previous TUGs we've had, you can go back. You can see it on Tableau's YouTube channel. Just search for CDTUG, and you'll find it there. So that's what I would definitely recommend. See, it's a quiz and a plug at the same time. It's quite good, isn't it? All right, question 8 of 10. Answer pass to get more points. You should know that by now. So which of these is not an element of Tableau Blueprint? There are 3 pillars to Tableau Blueprint, 4 questions. Agility, proficiency, community, leadership. One of those is not one of the Tableau Blueprint pillars. The other 3 are. Which is not? Leadership is correct, yes. So 5 of you fell by the wayside there. Proficiency is one of the parts, but leadership is not. So well done to Brittany there. Erica might go up to the top. Yes, it's Brittany, Jack, and Jim who are in the top 3 places for the prizes. Okay, 2 more questions left. Question 9. And question 9, if I remember rightly, is the geography question. Okay, so of our leaders and our guest, who lives furthest west? Is it Amy in Shrewsbury, Charlotte in London, me in Alfreton, or Eva also in London? So it's not going to be the 2 London ones because they live in the same place. Which one is it? It is Amy. Well done. So apologies for those of you not in the UK there, but we have 5 people still got that one right. Oh, our top 4 still got that one right. Okay, and one final question. So one of these is on Tableau's Show Me. The other 3 are not. Is it a donut chart, a pie chart, a waffle chart, or a lollipop chart? I could happily eat all 4 of those right now, but only one of those is on Show Me. Donut, pie, waffle, or a lollipop. The answer is, as I'm sure you all know, a pie. Oh, we've got some answers for the others as well. Does that change the final 3? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. All right. So well done, Brittany. Brittany Rosenau. Apologies if that's how you pronounce it. Rosenau. You are our winner. So write your name down there. And second is Jim, and third is Jack. So we'll get hold of you and see which of the 3 prizes you would like most. and then we'll do the same for Jim and the same for you, Jack. But thanks all for playing. I hope it was fun, and I hope they weren't too random. Feedback is a gift. Who wrote that? Did you write that, Charlotte? Is that my cue to hand back?
I did do the feedback as a gift because, as always, we would love some feedback really quickly after the session. So if you just want to go to give us some love on the page, and then when you're ready, if you just swap the slide, they are pretty vanilla, to be honest.
All right, let's see what we've got coming up. Yes. So while we're still on,
go ahead. I was really, how do people find today's session? So at the top of the list, super inspired, you strongly agree, you've managed to get a new idea, or actually it's not really your cup of tea, but you're glad you came along for the ride anyway. Obviously, nobody is allowed to vote on the bottom one. But I guess beyond this, feedback really is a gift. So please, if you do have any ideas or any feedback on our sessions or what we're doing, please feel free to contact, Neil, Amy, or myself. I don't know where our contact details are, but we are on LinkedIn. So you can definitely find us there, or whatever means is suitable for you, because it's really important that this is a community for our users and not for ourselves. So please do get in contact if you've got something to say. Cool, people are still seem to be voting. So just give it another sec, and then we'll pop on to the next slide.
Thank you.
The other thing, for those of the people that are on the Slack page that we have, we now also have a community forum page on the Tableau community forums. So you should be able to find us on there and join in the conversation and ask questions and things, keep the conversation going.
All right. And the next question is just, do you have any topics for the future? We tend to have these every 3 months, every quarter. So if you've got any ideas for what you'd like to see us do next time or in the near future, anyone you'd like us to talk to, or anything you'd like us to talk about, now's your chance to let us know. You can type that in. That's a good idea, retrospective. Okay, I don't know, people are typing longer answers here. Okay. Best practices for inviting guest speakers. That's a really good one, I think.
I was thinking about what Eva was saying with speakers being paid, was actually what I was just thinking when I was reading that one, because I think that's a really important thing and something that goes unmentioned quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, and what I've done personally as a speaker, I mean, obviously most of the stuff I do is through my job, so I don't expect any payment. But if I get invited as Eva Murray, the private person, to speak at an event that isn't a free event, I will ask for payment. And quite frankly, I don't even care how much they pay me. It's more the token to recognize that if you're making a profit from this event, it shouldn't be on the back of free labor by the speakers. It could be a £20 Amazon voucher or something like that. I think it's just, we as speakers also need to put it in the minds of people that we're not here for free, especially if it is outside of, normal paid employment kind of thing. So and again, it doesn't have to be big amounts, but some people want to build a career as a speaker, and it enables them to do so.
All right, some awesome suggestions there. Actually, we will take a screenshot of this, and we're always planning for our future events. We intend to keep this going and keep this going at least once a quarter. So we will definitely be looking at these. Thank you again. Thanks in particular to Eva. I felt well, I don't want to put words into your head, but I felt like we could have talked for hours there. It was just, you know, it went in no time at all. And I had a few questions. I thought, well, I can ask these if it goes quiet, and at no point did it go quiet. So we're just a small group, but we've got plenty to talk about and plenty to learn. So thank you for assisting us with that and giving up your time to share your passion and to talk to us. And yeah, thank you to all of you for coming. Congratulations, Brittany. Congratulations, Jim and Jack too. And we will get hold of you and we will sort out some wonderful Tableau prizes. And yes, don't forget, we will try to be back in about 3 months' time. Join our Slack or join our community group, or just keep an eye on the 3 of us and you'll see what's going on. But we'll stop it there, unless there's anything I've forgotten to say, Charlotte or Amy.
Okay.
All right, okay, well, in which case, thank you all very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.